Hey, I'm back with CSGO podcast. This time with me is WallaBeeBeatle, who has survived the winter despite naming himself after a Pokemon that most certainly must be like not name yourself, but your like avatar is basically a Pokemon that looks like it would certainly die in the winter. So you've at least outlived your namesake, in a sense.
All right, you just don't understand.
Okay.
Spore has 100% accuracy in comparison to Sleep Powder. So you combine like Spore Growth, which is a special attack booster, with like a Giga Drain. It's a pretty good Pokemon. It can survive
Yeah.
any like fucking uh, Dugong or whatever the fuck ice Pokemon. I'm fine.
All right, but I'm pretty sure yours is like the unevolved version, so I don't even know if you get Spore. But
Well, I'm not. I haven't really reached the next level. I'm just sitting around in my apartment, not doing much over this holiday. I need to write more. When I start writing, like Stuchu level, I'll up my avatar.
okay, well, good luck with that. I've been told it's pretty hard. I don't actually know. I'd have to ask other writers exactly. Um,
I,
but
I wonder what difficulty feels like. I really can't figure it out on my own.
yeah, like it's all relative, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. So in this particular podcast, so the reason I got Wallaby Beetle on is because he's like one of the, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 people in the entire world who's actually interested in the obscure topic of map veto strategy. And at the end of the year, I actually think like Astralis particularly started evolving their map strategy as like they started getting challenged more and more as time went on. Because like I remember I brought you on the last time where we talked a bit about like overall map strategy, and I couldn't pin down what Glaive's actual philosophy behind it was, because he could have either been like an absolutist, or he could have been like the relativist. Like he could have always been picking comfort, or he could have always been picking punish picks, because like he's oscillated between both,
Right.
depending on the timeline, right? And so I wasn't exactly sure where he was gonna go, and it becomes more obscured because like Astralis literally played like every map, or like 6 of the 7 maps for most of the year, and just kept winning the opponent's map pick anyway. So it was like it didn't really matter. But as like by the end of the year, like they started struggling more. They started pulling out more like clutch wins, stuff like that. And I and the two tournaments I think that kind of give away their map veto strategy is, in my opinion, ESL Pro League Season 8 finals against Liquid in the grand finals, and then the Blast Pro Series Lisbon against Navi. And I know you remember this because this is like the first time Liquid decided to ban Nuke,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And
And
so
then and then Astralis went for Train.
yeah, Train as the first pick
And
with
they did the exact same thing versus Navi. They first picked Cash
Cash.
actually, which is Navi's first band. So your theory is like, yeah, this is like their strategy. They're gonna prey on weaknesses.
Hmm. So I wanted to get your take on whether this was actually a good strategy by Astralis, because we don't actually know if they legitimately have a 7 map pool. For all we know, like it could have just been a counter strategy specifically for Navi in that case, or because we do know they played a little bit of trade, but they definitely didn't play any cash until that finals.
Yeah. Um. Basically, yeah. I was thinking about the terms we sort of used in the last podcast. Sort of like the terms I was using is like someone who thinks that they have that their best map is going to be able to beat anyone's um their anyone else's version of that map. So if they're a sick train team, they can beat anyone else's train. So they'll just pick train every time, right? So
Hmm.
this is like they think they have like an absolute advantage, where other in-game leaders are like the comparative advantage, where just finding which map in the pool they think they have the most discrepancy in skill versus their opponent. And as you were setting it up, it was actually interesting. I haven't thought about it this way, but it's not like Astralis wants to pick Nuke every single time, right?
Yeah.
It's that that's just their best map. That's sort of they've fallen into it, right? They just do their comparative advantage is like looks like an absolute advantage.
Hmm.
This is just where they had the greatest amount of advantage, and sometimes they don't even adhere to that. They versus I think they really learned their lesson at Stockholm when they lost that finals to North. I mean, that must have been a fucking gut punch losing to MSL with the op, right? Where they picked what Dust 2 with their first pick instead of Nuke,
Hmm. Yeah.
which was like that random loss like 16-1, right? So yeah, I'm sorry, what was your question again?
Well, we may as well slide into the MSL topic, I guess, for a little bit, because I should point out by the end of I'm pretty sure throughout all of 2019, the only 5-man roster to beat Astralis twice in a best of three is MSL's North, right?
Phase.
No, with the same 5-man roster,
Okay.
right? Because I don't think Phase. I guess technically Phase did it very early on with Olaf and then very late on with Olaf, but I don't know if you want to count that because like the in-game leader switch.
Yeah. They beat him at what? IEM Katowice, and then just recently at what was that tournament?
I know what you're talking about. It might have been ECS
Yeah.
or Chicago or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
was it Chicago where? But then what was the
but
tournament?
yeah, it might have been
I
but I've been
But
Chicago, but then they got like dumpstered by Liquid right after. Yeah, it was Chicago.
in the semifinals, and then Astralis beat Liquid again in the
Yeah,
finals. Yeah.
that's kind of how it went. So basically, MSL is like one of two, I guess, one of two people who have managed to do it. Right. So I always thought that was interesting, but basically, the question was, where's and I guess I'll tie MSL back later because that's kind of related to this map theory topic. But basically, what do you think of Astralis's like map veto strategy? Because like, if you
the thing where they're going from if the other team this new strategy that sort of developed very recently, which I was screaming about on Twitter for like 6 months, was that I think teams should first ban Nuke versus Astralis because it's such a dominant map for them, 27-0 or whatever the number is now.
yep,
Yeah, why not first ban it? Especially if you're Liquid, who's already run that experiment like 6 times. They lost in
yeah,
Astralis' Nuke 6 times. Navi, I think, has lost either 4 or 5 times to Astralis' Nuke.
mm-hmm.
So I think that it makes perfect sense for them to first ban that Nuke, then try something else, you know. And you see all it work out for Liquid in that finals. Was it the EPL finals? The best
Yeah.
of 5.
They won train. They were surprisingly good on train.
Right. So, which was Liquid's permaban, so it's sort of like a toss-up, right? It's a bad map for Astralis, bad map for Liquid, but you know, Astralis doesn't have any data on Liquid's train, going all the way back before E-League went before train became their permaban instead of Overpass. But yeah, so teams started first banning Nuke versus Astralis, then Astralis, in response, whenever someone first bans Nuke, when it's Nuke is not their normal permaban, Astralis just will pick their that team like Liquid or Navi's actual permaban. And yeah, okay, so it does seem like a pattern. It's happened a couple times now, twice now. The exact same pattern played out. I was sort of thinking about this before we started, like whether I think that's a good strategy or bad strategy. I think
Because this is like a Karrigan strategy, isn't it? It does feel like a Karrigan strategy in terms of map veto choice from Astralis' side.
I think Karrigan wouldn't be as formulaic, or I think
Formulaic.
formulaic or formula. Yeah,
I actually don't know how that's pronounced.
But do I think it's a good idea? Not necessarily. I think it's just them thinking, okay, this is a shit map for them. They're gonna lose on this map. They never practice this map. They're permaban, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we should pick, which is like, I think, yeah, exactly fits into the sort of narrative that we're constructing of Glaive sort of being just a guy who's looking to maximize his odds, right? Not necessarily believing in the dominance of one map. Like, you think maybe versus Liquid, why not play them on Inferno? Why pick Train first there? Right? I think Astralis is very, very successful on their Inferno and their Dust 2. I would put their maps like Nuke obviously is the best one. Then
I put
Dust
Inferno.
2 and
I put Inferno and Dust 2 right after.
Yeah,
But Dust 2 is like dangerous though. It feels variable.
Yeah.
I think their overpass is good, but their like win rate on it isn't as good as you would expect.
I think their Dust 2 win rate something like
Their Dust 2 win rate's better, but I think their overpass is like they play it better, even though they have worse win rate on it.
Yeah, I would have to think about it, but yeah, Dust 2 is a variable map, but they have been pretty successful, but mostly they play Inferno much more often. They sort of snipe teams with Dust 2. Teams who are uncomfortable on it or seemingly uncomfortable, like a Navi, they'll play Dust 2 more often on versus those sort of teams. But no, I'm not super comfortable if it is formulaic or formulaic in if they keep doing the same thing over and over again. It was like another team, will if say Mouse Sports goes into their next best of 3 versus Astralis, first ban's Nuke. Astralis goes into Mouse Sports' permaban, which I'm forgetting.
No, they probably just go straight into Inferno. That's what they did last time.
Yeah,
that's actually like the third time they did it. I think.
Okay. I didn't realize that happened. Oh, did that happen also at
I forget. Let me check, but I'm not exactly certain that was how the map veto worked out, but they did play against each other, and like that's essentially what happened.
I forget Mouse Force's permaban at the moment as well, but yeah, no, like if it's a pattern like that, if it keeps
they remove overpass. They remove overpass.
Overpass, and is that
Mouse's ban?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So that's 3 times the charm, or 3 times. Yeah.
3 times the answer.
So, yeah. So it seems like if this is the pattern, and me who's just sort of casually, I think about bans and stuff, and I'll talk about it on Twitter. You talked. I'm like one of the 5 people on Earth who actually do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, these teams do go into it for like a week. They do have to think about these, at least for a few hours the night before, of how they want their map pools to play out. I mean, I think that other teams will notice this and think, okay, so if we first pick Nuke versus Astralis, we've seen this a few times before, they'll just first pick our normal permaban. We should come up with a couple things tonight, or have a couple strats, a couple set pieces for our T side, just so we're comfortable enough to play Astralis in sort of a gimmicky, risky first game, right?
Yeah.
Which might give them a better chance than Nuke, so it's a positive then. But if Astralis actually does, start being a little bit more, in my understanding of Karrigan-esque, as being more wily, more willing to mess with the opponent's understanding of how the pick and ban theory will play out, the pick and ban phase will play out, to sort of muddle or confuse their prep, I think that'll be a much more effective strategy. But yeah, I think generally it's okay. I get worried if it's just a repetitive thing.
If it's like an obvious like structured outline. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna go back a little bit, because if you look at the Blast Pro Series Lisbon veto, right? Like when you think about it, like basically here's what happened in my mind. So Navi is finally like, okay, Liquid actually has it right. You just ban Nuke, right? Because even though Navi's Nuke is actually not that bad, it's like they have 0 chance against Astralis, right? They've basically proven themselves.
Are very, very low.
Very, very low chance against Astralis. And then, and generally they've actually been banning Cash against Astralis. And they, at some point, somebody realized in their team, wait, Astralis also banned Cash. Why don't we just float it, right? Like they didn't think about that up until now, right? So they banned Nuke, and
I'm sure they've thought about it. I just think that they're just so uncomfortable with the idea of leaving Cash.
Listen, man, I don't actually know what goes on in Zeus's mind sometimes. Like there are certain like leaders where you can kind of I have like criticisms of MSL, but there's always an obvious logic to what he's thinking or what he's doing. I can't say the same for Zeus.
That's fair enough. I mean, MSL is just like the guy who never gives up, even though everyone's telling his strategies or like his ideas or shit.
Yeah, that's what's great about him. But it's like with Zeus is like I'm not certain. Like he has like periods of brilliance and he has periods like terribleness, right? You can't really, and like lately, obviously, like terribleness is outweighing the brilliance. But that's like a different topic. Well, basically, so Navi removed Nuke. Astralis removed Train, which makes sense because like that's the biggest differential between them and Navi, probably.
No, that's a good ban.
Right? Navi pick over.
The first 2, I'm like totally down.
Yeah,
I think those are the best moves for both teams.
Those are the best moves for both teams. Navi picks Overpass, and I actually think this is the correct move for Navi. I think that's the biggest differential for them and Astralis, right?
Well, other than Train, yeah.
Other than Train, but that's because with the reset, so. I think those 3 are like 100% lock-ins. But here's the point I'm not certain about. Astralis picked Cash.
Yeah, see, that I also thought, like, I wasn't sure about that one. I would say Inferno there.
Like, I think Navi is terrible on Inferno. I think that's like an easy win for Astralis in that position.
Yeah, they're really setting themselves up for a very... Both teams don't have any data on each other because both of them usually Astralis is sort of can float their permaban a bit, especially earlier on, like when they're first getting used to the new pool with cobblestone getting removed. But Navi never plays Cash, so they had no idea what Navi's bringing out. Navi has no idea what Astralis. It's gonna be a scrappy game where Astralis is super comfortable in Inferno. I mean, the percentage of series where they played in Inferno is probably ridiculous. You know, I think they had like over almost 40 plays of Inferno and land.
They're legitimately the best Inferno team in the world. Like,
yeah, so I think that they're.
It's just overshadowed by the fact that they're literally 100% on nuke. Like, yeah. But like this to me is like basically the thing that gives away. This is straight up Astralis' strategy from this point onward, is because if you just think about it, if we're talking about like the relativists, I think the differential between Astralis' Inferno and Navi's Inferno at that point in time is far larger than the gamble choice of Cash.
Yeah, it does seem like. Well, okay, so there's this conceit, right? I mean, this is something, I don't know if Thorne will watch this video or not, but this is something I feel like I'm glad I didn't come to the podcast I did with him the other day, because I think this is something you'd yell at me about. But I'm under the opinion that Astralis' whole, like, I think they're a little bit, I think people are inflating Astralis a bit too much on their map pool. I don't think they have a 7-map pool. I think they have the intelligence to know when to float Cash. I'm not so certain they can actually play Cash. And, you know, I don't think they had never showed any capacity to play Cobblestone, you know? So I'm not so certain they have the supremacy to do this. I think in their minds, like, no, we can pick Cash. We're comfortable in Cash, you know? We have some map pool. I think it's a little bit of cockiness there. It's like, we got to abuse their...
I think it might be just... All right, so there's a lot of interesting things to go about this, because I did read an interview from Astralis that basically their assumption was that this was going to be the map veto for the major finals.
Well, that's what Navi should have done.
That's what Navi should have done, but they didn't. Because, like I said, Zeus is fucking crazy sometimes, right? But like in their minds, they thought this was going to be the map veto for finals, and so they specifically anti-stratted Cash for Navi.
Well, how do they do that?
But I don't actually know how they do that, right? Because Navi don't actually play Cash.
Like practice games or something.
No, like I don't think practice games give very good, especially with a Zeus team. Remember Zeus won 0% scrims.
Games, like maybe sometimes Navi might try Cash on.
No, it's even worse online just because they're from Russia. It's like that's even worse.
Oh yeah.
Like the ping differential is so different, it may as well not be the same game.
Yeah, I have no idea how they quote unquote anti-strap them. That sounds
ridiculous. Yeah, that sounds ridiculous,
like
right?
Interview answer. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of like what their thought process is like and that puts me in an interesting like perspective. Like if they legit, like there's two things we can go, there's like two presuppositions you can start with this. Either Astralis legitimately do have a 7-map pool, and if that's the case, this is actually the correct map veto choice, if only because it puts fear into the rest of the future teams when they map veto against Astralis, assuming Astralis are continually willing to pick Cash against weak Cash teams. But if you're right in that they don't actually have a good Cash, they're like maybe a 6-map team, kind of like maybe 5.5, depends on how well you rate their train, I guess.
Yeah.
Because I actually think it's 6 just because I don't think there's actually any good train teams right now. Like
other than Navi.
Yeah, other than the Navis, like no good train teams, right? So they may as well be the second or third best in the world, even with their like weak train.
Yeah.
Right.
No, but they've lost 3 of their last 3. On train, I think.
Yeah, but it's like
the last 4.
Yeah, it's still like
over the year. I think they're like still pretty decent on it.
Still pretty decent on it.
6% win rate. They had a good streak at one point. Like they won like 6 or 7 in a row.
Yeah.
I just don't when you can look into the X's and O's and see how actually they play out and judge it that way. But my just gut instinct is like if Astralis are so desperate to avoid train, I mean, there's got to be something that they're uncomfortable with. I mean, like. Kirby leaving Ivy and then Magic sort of filling in that role, or
it's Magisk.
Yeah. So maybe they're uncomfortable there and how their CT side plays out. Or they're uncomfortable responding to the pressure and that sort of chaotic outside situation. And Ivy's pretty critical, right? If you lose, it's hard to say why they feel uncomfortable, but I think it's a pretty big tell if it goes from the like. At one point, they thought I could tell from the pick and ban phase at the end of 2017 that they thought Train was their best map, and then for like 4 months later, for them to like be avoiding it so much, I think they have to think their train isn't.
I think their train died mid like 2017, to be honest.
Um.
Yeah, I think that's the
Yeah.
period, right? When
Right.
like
Well, they lost that crazy game to Liquid in like the super hot room, right, where everyone's
yeah,
complaining about. There's all those pictures, right? But I think their train didn't really fall off till the Astralis themselves were falling off.
till
Like
after the stand-in periods,
yeah,
basically.
stand in period, yeah, and then I think their map pool pretty shifted pretty dramatically with the cobblestone removal. You see sort of a reordering, and that's also around the same time as the Magic's pickup, so it's hard to disaggregate that a little bit. Um, but to your point, which I'm forgetting again, what was the question?
Oh, basically is like I forget. We just completely went off the rails.
Yeah, sorry, my bad.
But
But you're talking about if they have a 7 map pool or not, right?
yeah, right. Like
I mean, that's my opinion. I mean, I would have to do a closer analysis of like the cash games.
like I looked at the cash game. You're not gonna get that much out of it. Like I think you need more data to actually figure out they're like legitimately good on it or not.
Yeah, I think you're right. So I'm not convinced of their cash. I think, but my understanding, I mean, that'd be next level if they thought it was like it's sort of like a Karrigan move where they were trying to strike fear into the other teams. Like, no, we'll pick cash. We're crazy, We'll
Yeah, hey, that's how Karrigan beat them.
fans.
That's how Karrigan beat them in I Am Sydney, right? Like
Right.
that's like a baller
2017
move.
with cobblestone, right?
Mm-hmm. And
I mean, that'd be interesting. I don't know if they're thinking that far ahead or if they have that like shock and awe sort of
like
perspective. I
like
think of them as sort of quiet little nerds, like
yeah.
Clave and Zipnik's just sort of crunching the numbers. Like I think we can play this map. I don't think they can. So like I don't think of them as being like a sort of pro wrestler thing,
Mm-hmm.
holding up the belt, trying to intimidate everyone else. But that's just my weird
Yeah.
imagery that I'm projecting onto them. I don't really know what they're thinking.
Yeah, because I think it could go either way. Because I don't know if you saw this, but basically like Yanko on like Twitter is basically like, yeah, I think it should have gone to Inferno on this map pick in Lisbon.
Yep.
And then Zonic replied, no, we think we should have gone to Cash because we have to punish people who try to ban nuke against us. So even though like
Okay, so they actually did say that publicly. That's interesting.
yeah, but I don't actually know if that's a bluff.
Yeah,
Right, like because that's what I would be doing. I'd be bluffing if I legitimately don't have a set map pool. I bluff the shit out of that, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's interesting. I mean, that's sort of like a faulty logic, though, if they actually believe it. They like we have to punish people for playing cash. You punish people by beating them. Like, you win on Inferno, right? Don't play a bad map versus Liquid or Navi, right? Don't punish people mentally. You just win the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but
I mean, yours is more next level. If they're just saying that they realize this is a bad move, but they're just trying to
bluff their way out.
the next time.
But that's what I would do. But like you can.
I mean, now that what if teams listen to this podcast and they realize this was a bluff, and then it's pretty scary.
Listen, all I have to do is just DM me. Is like, please don't reveal the strategy. But I'm certain like
there's been points where, like I was in Atlanta and I tried to do interviews, but I'm incompetent, so I couldn't figure it out. But I saw MSL, but I never got to interact with him. He was always running around like in the distance. I never got to interface. But I really wish that I could like grab MSL by the shoulders and like look him in the eyes and be like, "Let me run your pick and ban phase. You're terrible, please." Like or Zeus. If I just need to go to Fishiest Dude and scream at him over DMs or something, and get him to talk to Zeus, or get me in control of that.
I actually think they should just let Simple run the map veto. Like I'm not even joking. Like every time I fucking look at Navi, like random bits of information come out. It's like, oh wow, Zeus made a fucking incredible call in this Inferno game. It's like, and then like turns out, oh no, that was actually Simple. And then like, oh wow, Zeus made this incredible map veto pick. It's like, oh no, that was actually Simple. It's like literally every I don't know why, but like last 6 months, every smart move Navi's made as like an in-game leader was all Simple for some reason. It's like,
well, it's this weird thing about to sort of get out of the jokiness of it. There is this weird thing with when you're in the context of a team. I think you do listen to the players a little bit too much. You're like, nah, we really don't want to play Cash versus Astralis, or we don't even want to leave Cash open. This is like major grand finals. We don't want to get embarrassed on Cash when Astralis picks it against us, so we leave it up. Can we please just ban Cash, please? Like, and the coach is like, all right, let's ban
Cash.
cash, right? So I think that players are just very uncomfortable. Like the discomfort of the players will, players will play towards comfort, especially in like really tight or heavy pressure situations. So I do think there is something like you have to have as a coach, like a critical distance almost from what the players say. Like, I think that players will lead you astray in that. I think Liquid, I mean, is the best example of this. Like, I think that if you look, I did my whole article on Liquid, and I talked about it on the Counterpoints episode I did.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty much the same thing every time after like 2 or 3 series. The next like 6 or next 5 was like the exact same pick and ban phase with like either Liquid's fueling Mirage that term or
Inferno.
Inferno, right? And they just lose on both anyway. So like Liquid should have definitely tried to first ban Nuke earlier. I mean, Thorn, when I did the episode, said like that's a gimmick and you can't do that every time. But I mean, they should have tried something earlier, right? So I think if it's anything other than I think the players must have too much control of that. So I mean, as much as I would like to just give it over to a Simple or something like that, someone who's a little bit more cocky, a little bit more baller, maybe just doesn't have the brain worms that Zeus has. I think you run into the same sort of scenarios, and I think a strong coach making those pick and ban decisions is what a team needs.
All right, so we've been talking mostly about this from the Astralis point of view, but what do you think about like you pointed out, like this trick, I guess, if you want to call it a gimmick or a trick, it's been kind of working. I don't think it's like I don't know if it's gimmicky or not. It really depends on the team, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And how many times you use this trick, because like as you pointed out, if you keep using the same formula over and over again, it's gonna the payoff is gonna be less each time.
Well, I think also the amount of preparation you can do in a night or like 2 nights, right, as you like prepare for a match, isn't super great. So I do think people like will overestimate how much of an advantage you do get by surprising your opponent. It's like, say Navi really surprises Astralis by picking Nuke themselves. That's gonna surprise them, but that's gonna get them a win. So I think there is a value to the preparation, like scumming or confusing other teams' preparation. But no, I think that to me it's not a gimmick if it's a good idea, right? I mean,
so
Astralis might know next time, okay, Navi's gonna first ban our nuke, so we gotta have our cash prep, or they're gonna be more confident in the idea that Navi will do it, so they'll put more time in their cash and less time in their nuke in the preparation for that match the night before, 2 nights before, how many ever days they have preparation for that match. So it gets less effective over time, but the raw effectiveness of that night of prep or those couple nights of prep for a big match isn't that big of a deal. So if it's still like a pretty big advantage of picking banning nuke first, I don't think it's a gimmick. I just think that it's a good idea, more or less.
Mm-hmm. Because like the way I'm thinking about it is like you have to be at least like a 6-map team to do this, right? And so that's why I think Navi and Liquid can kind of get away. Old Liquid, I actually don't know what Stewie 2K Liquid is going to look like, but old Liquid could have gotten away with this. But like if I think about like Mouse Sports, I think they just straight up die if they ban nuke on their own.
Yeah, because there's too many holes, right, for Astralis to abuse.
Yeah,
and they can like find a hole where they feel not only that it's a big weakness for Mouse Sports, but it's also a big point of strength. Like with the cash example, where Astralis has to pick cash their own permaban to punish Navi's permaban, that's not a huge advantage, but maybe versus someone like Mouse Sports, yeah, I see that.
Yeah, like with Mouse Sports, like they just pick Inferno and then Mouse Sports instantly dead on that map, right? Because Mouse Sports don't play that map. I don't actually know how MIBR is going to look like with Phelps, because like there's like a funny few ways they could rig it. It doesn't have to be like the 2017 roster if they don't want it to be. Like I'd probably switch like for Phelps.
I mean,
they'll still ban nuke, but like the rest of the map will how they play the rest of it will change.
Yeah, Well, I don't know what MIBR's map pool was before they.
They didn't have a map pool before,
Yeah.
right? Not really.
Like I couldn't make sense of it.
No, like it literally like died halfway. I think like they lost everything by the end. Like they no longer had Mirage, Cobblestone, Train, Overpass, or Inferno.
I mean, there is a limit to like thinking about teams in terms of the map pool. I think it's a useful tool, but I think at some level that team just didn't work. MIBR. So trying to analyze in terms of which map works and which ones don't for them just didn't make sense
because like the entire team was dysfunctional.
I mean, they just didn't have the fundamental strengths of a MIBR team. They just were a bad mid and late round team. They just never got on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
Only bad relative to their peaks, but maybe not bad relative to Envious or whoever you want to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also think like teams like FaZe and IP Fnatic. I don't think they can. I don't think a bunch of these teams could do like this wild card map veto against Astralis.
Well, I mean, FaZe doesn't have to, right?
Well, no, FaZe just needs to shoot heads, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, FaZe also like has always like permaban nuke versus Astralis anyway, so it's not.
Yeah, for them it's not any different, but like NIP certainly can't do it. I think they actually have to win a nuke or they'll just straight up die.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, they even tried to play Astralis in a best of one at one of the last series on Nuke, so I thought that was super interesting.
Yeah.
They think that's their route, even in a best of one, to win. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, after I saw that, I had to like look back on their Wikipedia page and check to see if Exist was still in this roster or not. But
no, I don't know. I don't know about that. I think it's pretty dumb. But I mean, they think that's like that's their success. They have to beat Astralis on Nuke to win the series.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I don't know. It's just a bad. I mean, at a certain point, I said this in my Liquid article. This is like at some point, Astralis is just a sick team.
At some point, you just gotta give it up.
No matter what you do, like, I think a man is better than you, like on all the maps, or like 5 of the 6 you guys are gonna play. Like, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, but you would think in Liquid's particular case, they'd upset them at least like in one best of 3. Never managed to do it. So
they should have definitely. I mean, they needed. Liquid was much closer to Astralis in skill. I think to some degree there has to be some sort of
psychological problem.
I don't even want to say psychological, but I just think they had a bad approach. But I mean, that's a whole different topic.
Yeah. Well, actually, we may as well go into that because that's kind of what the essential problem with like the map pool strategy, the map veto strategy for dealing with Astralis is like the whole point is to try to win the best of 3 against Astralis, and like the way you pick your map is also kind of like correlated with the style of play your team has, right?
Roughly, yeah.
Yeah, roughly, right? And like if you look at like the various teams that have actually beaten Astralis in a best of 3, so Navi did it, North did it, FaZe did it, MIBR did it, right? And among like if I look at those 4 teams and how they did it in each time, like it doesn't really follow along tactical or like loose guidelines like how people normally think of the styles, because like MSL's like victory over them was extremely tactical, whereas like I'd say MIBR and FaZe's wins were not tactical, weren't nearly as tactical. They were more based off of like player skill and form on the day.
I don't know if MSL was playing the most tactical style with that new lineup with Nico at.
I think he cracked Dust 2 pretty hard.
It was about intelligence. Like they did make good reads in the mid round. They didn't run like a super structured style. It felt like they were doing a lot of like smart gimmicks. It felt like. Yeah. But no, I think it was. But I agree with your general point that there doesn't seem like a through line like
between like the teams that have upset them, right?
Yeah, I do think that Astralis at some certain points, like at Chicago, did look a lot weaker, and I do think that if teams like FaZe, MIBR, Navi, and Liquid, if they do keep first banning Nuke, I don't think Astralis has a reliable win in any other maps. I mean, that's obvious, right? That Nuke is they won 27 times. Inferno is very good for them, but they don't win every single time. Maybe like Liquid did at the major get an upset win on Inferno.
Yeah, that like literally took everything out of them though.
Yeah, but it was a weird game, right?
Yeah,
it was like that the really swingy.
The really swingy T side momentum game.
Yeah. So I know. I mean, I think you have to. I think if teams do roll the dice with this strategy, I think it won't win them every series. I don't know if they'll give them a straight advantage over Astralis. and it doesn't give them like a clear like, okay, this is our strategy. This will give us a tactical edge if we go here and here. But I think it's just not as consistent. Like in the Inferno, I mean, like the perfect example is that Liquid game you just mentioned. Like that's not gonna. I mean, that's just like a shitty game, right? On
Mm-hmm.
Inferno, that can happen sometimes on Inferno. You know, especially with this new economy, you get locked out of the CT side, and then you don't have the utility to hold in banana or something like this. I think that teams can get lucky enough times if they keep reading the strats, or if they're just willing to try stuff and not get into the liquid scenario where they're doing the exact same pick and ban phase every single time and just losing over and over.
Yeah, like if I had to pick a through line between all these upsets, I think all of them are correlated to a point where like each of the teams did something that Astralis literally could not see coming, because they all did something specifically at that moment, or like phase when they beat them at IEM Sydney. They never played against that exist lineup.
Right, and they never played versus the North lineup. That was a very new lineup, right?
Yeah.
Then MIBR, I think they have a decent matchup with a nuke first ban. Had they played a best of three before?
No, they never played MIBR head to head. But like the thing about the MIBR one is like they started doing random shit near the end that completely threw them off.
Oh, okay.
Like I remember like the 29th round of like Inferno or something. Like he pulled Fallen called a double off tactic on like Inferno T side, and then like he ran to apartments, got a pick, and then so like the B player is just like, oh, surely nobody's picking down B, and then Stewie also had an op, and they got 2 kills, and that's how they won that one, right? Like
didn't Stewie have a really good game on CT side that game too?
Probably, yeah, I think probably. So like it's yeah, like that's actually pretty rare also.
On the B side,
because like Stewie and Terra,
UK is okay as like a side anchor. He just doesn't play it like.
He doesn't play it like Taco.
He's just a very different player than Taco, even though he'll be in the same positions.
Yeah, like, and then you look at like the Navi upset. Like basically nobody understood what the fuck Navi was doing up to that point, but basically they were just breaking economies off the back of Simple being fucking godlike, right?
Yeah, I mean that's not the sometimes Simple and even Electronic, right?
Yeah,
have those stand out.
And then they also did like this.
Stand back and all, right?
Yeah, and then like they also did the CT side gambles, and I looked back at that game, and like they weren't even getting the correct gambles most of the time. Like half the like what happened was like Zeus was like, okay, we're gonna call 3 at B this time with like no info, and then Charlotte's go A, and then Electronic kills 4. It's like, oh, okay, like technically that worked, right?
Yeah, no, I think that. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you that there doesn't seem a consistent through line. No one's figured out how to beat Astralis, right?
Yeah, like literally the only through line is surprise them.
Surprise, right? Like unusual pick and ban phase for playing a team that doesn't have a lot of data for the first time, or some of the maps that they've lost on, even not series as teams when they picked an unusual map like Train versus Liquid recently, right? So I definitely agree. There's an idea to that, and especially if you do consider Astralis as like the most prepared team, the most like tactical team in terms of, if you think of tactical as being like the preparation prior to the round, like the plan going into the round.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you never played Liquid on Train before, it's hard to sort of game out like where to stack do the classic 3 frag grenade nade stack, right? If you don't know the tendencies. So I do think it. Yeah, I mean, as I said, as I sort of was screaming by the end of my Liquid article with them, they should try new stuff. I definitely think that's a good idea versus Astralis.
Well, I mean,
but here's also a point that I've been thinking about a lot. Think about how many of these teams have just been so stagnant with their roster. Navi's had this roster together for like
over a year,
16 months, like October.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, of October of like 2017 phase. I mean, they've had in and out with the lineups. The 5th man changes with Olafmeister with the injury,
but basically hasn't changed even with like the stand-ins.
Yeah, but that goes all the way back to August 2017. That lineup.
Yeah.
And Liquid. I mean, okay, they weren't together that long with that Taco lineup, maybe 6 or 7 months. NRG's been together for
a long period of time.
Yeah, since like January 15th, I think 2018.
Yeah.
So I think the MIBR just wasn't a good team. So I don't think
like it wasn't a well assembled team. Like it just didn't make sense.
In terms of this, like they have a ton of data on Liquid because they play them in so many series last year and they just won every time. Ton of data on Navi, ton of data on FaZe, and they know Karrigan, and so they're prepared for all these teams, right? Mouse Sports was together. How long? Well, I guess they went in and out with Snacks, but now they're back to the old lineup, right?
But like they know a shit ton about Mouse Sports too. So
yeah. So I think, as I said in the episode of Counterpoints I did, I do think that once I think Astralis will win the major. I mean, that's not a bold prediction. I think that's
not
pick,
yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think in the roster change period subsequent to the major is definitely when Astralis. I mean, not definitely. You can't say anything definitely. But I think that is a very high possibility of Astralis being dethroned or other teams being able to beat them more consistently. Even if they're not necessarily better than Astralis, we won't see Astralis winning 5 out of 6 tournaments, right?
Yeah. Like I think the only way you kill Astralis is if you team up Simple with Karrigan and then just add like 3 other guys.
Oh, dude, it makes me sick to my stomach thinking about Karrigan Envy, dude. Needs to be on a better team than this. Like, I think that if you're gonna replace Taco for Stewie 2K, you gotta put try Karrigan out there. Like, it's a different roster. You're not gonna have that magic anymore. Okay, maybe Liquid doesn't have the capital or whatever.
Like, I don't think FaZe would actually allow that though. Like FaZe the org, they'd be like, yeah, you can use Karrigan as a stand-in. Wait, no, fuck that shit.
Yeah. But like, think about, Karrigan on NRG, like that could be interesting and maybe another pickup. Like, you think if
no, Karrigan can like legitimately fix like almost every team in the top 10 outside of Astralis. Like, I think it'd be better on Na'Vi and MIBR and like all these teams.
Oh, MIBR would be sick too. I haven't been very impressed by
whatever the team's done, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's a coaching problem. I mean, I don't want to.
I feel like they basically lost.
Analysts.
I feel like he lost his right hand with Taco, and that's kind of like, because Taco's like a super communicative like player who understands his system. So I feel like he basically like lost like a pillar of his like system.
Well, I mean, the problem is it didn't mesh, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know why.
Yeah, but we don't know why.
Yeah. So they were reverting a couple steps back. It's like, okay, let's go back to what we know meshed. Even just for a brief period, just for like 3 months or so, right?
Yeah.
That SK team was sick for the summer of 2017, but
yeah, like
they weren't good for a long stretch.
Yeah, like if they either switch around for Phelps or Phelps is actually like matured after like being an in-game leader for Ints, then I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, I think that's, like I said, I think my answer right now is get Karrigan on Na'Vi and then you're good to go.
Yeah, I don't know about their English.
I don't think they need that like the way Karrigan like runs the system. I don't know how good the English necessarily has to be.
Yeah, as long as it works. See, that's the problem. I don't have a big problem with Zeus. I have a problem with Edward. Like, I don't think the problem is Zeus. I think the problem's Edward. Like, Zeus can make it work enough where I don't think it's like a huge detriment. I think sometimes he does like have good mid-round calls and like.
Yeah, every once in a while.
He's playing pretty self-sacrificial roles. Like his normal roles are not the roles he's playing right now. So I'm willing to give Zeus a pass. But I think
Edward needs to go.
I think Edward needs to go. I think Karrigan might be enough. I think I don't know about the English. See, is the thing with Na'Vi. But I definitely think I think Karrigan should still be on FaZe. I think they should try a different roster move. I always thought that
like
Rain for Sunny would be a sick move. I think, and it's also like the sick naming Sunny Rain. But yeah, NRG would be a good place. Cloud9 might be a good place. Like, why can't that team get? I mean, some of the guys on that team are kind of bums at this point. But,
like if you all right, so. This is quickly turning into a where the fuck should Karrigan go podcast, but fine. We'll go down this tangent because he's actually like legitimately the most interesting free agent anybody could ever have because like he can fix so many rosters, right?
I mean, or you could potentially fix somebody.
Potentially fix like, listen, man. If he
definitely the most interesting, most exciting movie roster can make if they've been like sort of in this stuck in like a stagnant period, like NRG, like Liquid, like FaZe, like. Cloud9 even. I mean, if he wants to, I think that's sinking low for a character because
like I think that's too low. But like if I was Cloud9, right? Like
Mouse Sports might be interesting too.
Yeah, Mouse Sports would be interesting too. But like if I was Cloud9, here's how you like. I don't think Mouse Sports has the capital to do it. So like that's why I don't even consider them necessarily. Because like here's what Cloud9 could do for Karrigan. Is like, first you get him like a big fat check because apparently they're fucking rich, right? But
Maybe.
But the most important thing is you have to give Karrigan fucking leverage in the team, because like the previous two teams he's basically been kicked out, like kicked out of Astralis and then kicked out of FaZe. But if you like legitimately giving leverage, like, okay, from now on you're basically the shocks of this roster. You gotta choose your players, and then if shit goes down, we'll always back you, and then we'll kick everybody else if we have to.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's how you get Karrigan onto a team like Cloud9. Right?
No, I think that's like one of these international rosters is where he's got to end up, and then we can see his sick pick a man phase, to go back to the beginning of the podcast. And I think, think about how like perfect Karrigan would be to be for like Liquid. Like, I know people want to like prop up Nitro, and Liquid do have a pretty sick like system in place, and so you might wonder how much is that as Nitro, but I don't know. I don't really know the intricacies of that team. If I for whatever reason, because of my own projections on the Nitro, for some reason I think that he's not integral in that process. They just have a good smart players and a good like a core, right? But I think that Karrigan would be willing to be daring enough in the command phase. I think he has the mentality to try to upset teams or trick teams, which has definitely been Liquid's a problem with Astralis. I think he can get teams to work, especially when there's a lot of skill on a roster and not a lot of cohesion. I think that's what he's been proven to do many times in his career. This is exactly what the Liquid team is, especially now with Stewie 2K being a skill upgrade. Like, we're an even better team now, skill-wise, in comparison to what they were before when they were like second best team in the world. So I think Karrigan would be a sick roster move for
Liquid.
Yeah.
Like, I would have got Karrigan before Stewie 2K if I had the choice. But now with Stewie 2K, I probably have.
If it's not like, if it's possible monetarily and Taco chooses to leave. See, I wouldn't have broken up that roster.
No, nobody would have broken up that roster except for Taco and Zeus.
If Taco's leaving, then yeah, Karrigan is like percent first pick.
Yeah,
like he's of free agents, right?
Yeah.
It's not even your first pick. It's like your first pick among free agents. I mean, there's very few people that you would want above Karrigan, and he's available, so I think it would have been great.
Yeah, like the other choice, I like if you go back to like the FaZe thing, like if I was like running that org, I probably would have been like, okay, Karrigan, you need Rain, and then you probably have to kick two of the other three out. Or you need actually you probably need Karrigan and Nico, but they don't work together apparently.
Well, I mean, it sucks that you can't just like yell at them and like
make them work together.
Yeah, because like I definitely keep Karrigan, Nico, Guardian. Maybe not even. I don't even know if you need Guardian.
No, I think
Karrigan, Nico.
Yeah.
And then Olaf sounds like
fun. Olaf, yeah, that's probably the three best choices.
And then try to get try Walk Scout instead of Guardian, or try Sunny out instead of
Rain. Yeah. Or do some that's what I think they should have done, but then like Nico took over power, and then here we are, right? So that's kind of how that went down.
It's sort of the real politic. It's like our nerd what would be the best scenario doesn't work if two people are just in a room yelling at each other, like who put away the milk or something,
Yeah.
Like if there's just some irreparable interpersonal problem, it's just like, I don't know, like that FNX lineup back in the day. I mean, I don't know what actually happened. I don't slide into DMs like DK or whatever. But, it was rumored to just be some interpersonal problem, right? That a team broke up when they're still like hitting top 4 every single tournament. Like
that as far as I know, this is just based off of interviews. FNX just stopped practicing. It's like, and what's the point in keeping that roster together, right?
I mean, he was pretty shit at the end of that team.
Yeah, he was, but like not only was he shit, but he wasn't practicing. Like at that point, you have to get him out, right? And I still don't think he's practicing even now. So,
I mean, I don't know.
But yeah, like the final choice for Karrigan is like the Swedish scene. Like if he could get the best pieces of Fnatic and IP together, he'd be unstoppable.
No, I definitely think there's a lot of pent up possibilities in the Swedish scene. I mean, like, to be honest, I didn't even follow Fnatic and NIP that closely. Like, Fnatic was good at the very beginning of 2018, but like
they basically fell off, and then they came back at the very end.
I'll see like one best of one from NIP. It's like, maybe I should start watching this team again, and it's just like
No,
the
right?
best is like someone average, you know, like big or someone, and you're just like, fine.
I think if you get him like I think you get him like the right four from between those two squads, he'd be like a top 3 team.
Oh no, I definitely think that Karrigan would be a great. I think Karrigan with like parts of NIP that still work might be interesting. Like I definitely think Rez is like
Overrated.
interesting. You think he's overrated?
Well, he was overrated because remember, like when he remember that I am
He had
Oakland
that same
thing,
tournament at I am Oakland.
and then everybody's like, yeah, this guy's gonna be next for Get Right. It's like here we are 2 years later. It's like he's a good player. It's not like a godlike player, right?
I don't know, like.
But I also don't know if that's like
NIP.
the still the same perception about him. So
I think there's definitely pieces you could play with in the Swedish team if you built around Karrigan, like you were saying. Like if you made Karrigan like
the one,
the head honcho, and then you try to swap it pieces in and out. There's just enough good players, I think.
yeah.
Even if there's not like a 6-star anymore. You know?
I think Crims is about the closest you can get,
yeah,
but like yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, but like basically like every Swedish roster that's been good has always been based around like 4 skilled players at least.
And an average, like, overrated in-game leader.
Yeah. Shout outs to NIP and Fnatic. Yeah. Yeah. I think about ends it. You have any final words to say about the Astralis Map Veto?
I don't think they have a 7-map pool. And I think that I'm gonna get proven right by history, but we'll see.
Yeah. I'd like to see them continue down the path of Karrigan and just like keep playing wildcard map vetoes personally. Because I straight up think that's like the best way to play the map veto. Like period.
I think you have to float your I think that the idea of a permanent rated. I think you should definitely try to float it.
Yeah. I think
I think Karrigan did get too risky at some points. Like I think he blew a series at Epicenter 2017 versus VP. Stuff like that.
Yeah, but I still think that's like the best way overall to do it. Like I think he's still like the best map veto like leader, I guess if you want to put it that way. Map veto leader we've ever had. So
I think he's definitely I mean I just like my brain is just like everyone else is bad. But I guess
if you compare him to his peers, not to
I mean like I'm thinking like MSL dog shit. I think Glade's okay. Like I just don't think it's like the most efficient. Zeus dog shit.
Fallen is decent actually, but like it's also
Fallen's consistent. It's just like his team doesn't always know what the map pool is. There's that adjustment period.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, those are my final words.
All right. See you guys later.